All right, let's dive into one of the wildest earnings reports I think I've ever seen. A company called Rani Therapeutics just put out their fourth quarter numbers for 2025, and look, on the surface, they looked awful. But behind the scenes, it was, no joke, probably the best quarter in the company's entire history. So how is that even possible?
So right off the bat, you see this total contradiction. On the left, you've got the official results everyone sees first. They missed on earnings and they missed on revenue by more than $3.5 million. Not good. But then you look at the right, a potential deal worth over $1 billion and $60 million in new cash. What gives?
And that's the big question we're going to tackle, right? How can a company's reported numbers and what's actually happening in the business be so completely disconnected? Let's unpack it.
Okay, so first up, let's just look at the numbers that had everybody scratching their heads. We're going to break down that bad news you see right on the surface. So check this out. Wall Street was expecting a loss of about 5 cents a share. Raucuni came in with a loss of 7 cents. So that's a miss. But the revenue miss was the real shocker. They were expected to bring in $5 million, but they only reported $1.46 million. I mean, on paper, that just looks like a total dud, right?
But here's the thing. To get what's really going on with Rani, you got to forget those numbers for a second and look at their actual technology. We're talking about a pill that injects.
Yeah, this really says it all. Rani Therapeutics is a biopharma company, and their whole mission is to get rid of painful shots and replace them with a pill that you just swallow. And they're going after this huge category of drugs called biologics. These are super powerful, really complex medicines, like the new obesity drugs everyone's talking about, or treatments for really rare diseases. The big problem? They're super fragile. If you try to swallow them, your stomach acid just chews them up. And that's why, up until now, you've pretty much always had to inject them.
Okay, so how do they solve this? This is the RaniPill, and it's kind of brilliant. Step 1, you just swallow the capsule. It's built to survive the stomach, no problem. Step 2, it makes its way down safely into your small intestine. And then, and this is the magic trick, a tiny little dissolvable injector pops out and painlessly delivers the drug right into the intestinal wall. It is literally a swallowable needle.
All right, so now that you get the tech, let's dig into the real story here. The amazing news that was buried in that supposedly bad report.
First, let's just look at this number, $1.1 billion. That's the potential value of a new deal they just signed with a pharma giant called Chugai. You don't get that kind of bet from a major player unless they believe you've got something really special.
On top of that, they got this, $60.3 million in fresh funding. And what's really telling is that the deal was oversubscribed, which is just a fancy way of saying so many serious investors wanted in, they couldn't even take everyone's money. That screams confidence.
And what does all that cash buy you? Time. A whole lot of it. With this new money, Rani says they've got enough cash in the bank to last them all the way into late 2027. That is a huge runway for a company like this. But this might be the craziest number of them all, 111%. In their early tests for an oral obesity drug, their pill achieved 111% bioavailability. Get this, that means the pill actually delivered more of the active drug into the body than the standard injection did. That's not supposed to happen. It's a massive win.
Okay, so bad numbers on one side, but $1 billion deal and mind-blowing science on the other. How do you square that? Well, it all comes down to a little and kind of boring lesson in accounting.
And hey, don't just take it from me. Let's look at what the CFO herself had to say. She explained that even though they got a $10 million payment from Chugai up front, accounting rules, they're weird. They only let them recognize or count $1.5 million of it as revenue for that quarter. So, you see, it's not a business problem, it's a bookkeeping rule.
This chart makes it super clear. That bar on the left, that's the actual cash they got in the door, $10 million. The bar on the right, that's what the accounting rules let them put on the quarterly report. Just a tiny slice. The cash was in the bank, but on the books, it looked totally different. All right, so the money's there. The accounting mystery is solved. So what's next? Well, now comes the real test, the biggest one yet, moving this tech from the lab into actual human beings.
At the end of the day, all of this, the deals, the funding, it all comes down to one thing, the Phase 1 human clinical trial for their oral obesity drug RT-114. The partnerships are great, but the ultimate proof is always, does it work in people?
And believe me, this trial is a huge deal. First, it's the very first time this obesity drug will be tested in people using the RaniPill. The goal? To show that it can cause the same kind of weight loss as the injection. And here's the kicker. If this works, it basically proves their whole concept works and opens the door to turn dozens of other injectable drugs into simple pills.
Which leaves us with this one kinda huge question for the future of medicine. After decades of relying on needles for our best drugs, could a pill you just swallow actually end the era of the injection? The crazy part is, we might get an answer to that a lot sooner than you think.